watching Public Eye, brought to you by the New Vision Movement. And now, here's your host, Dr. Frank McField.
Welcome to Public Eye. We have this evening with us the Georgetown Force of Four, and we would like to give viewers the opportunity again to hear from us with regards to some of the many accomplishments that the Ministry of Community Services, Youth, Sports and Gender Affairs have been able to make over the last 3.5 years. And the Force of Four really is a reinforcement of the activities, the strategies, the aim and objectives of that ministry and the United Democratic Party's social management policies, because it's very important for us to recognize that without good social management, without understanding that if a country grows rapidly, that there are things that will get broken and that those things need to be repaired if we're going to have an inclusive, healthy society. So the social policies are some things that really get left behind in many of the political manifestos and many of the political discussions that are taking place and have taken place in the Cayman Islands. And I really believe that it should be at the forefront. If you have an idea of how you can move your country forward economically, then you should have the consciousness or the ability to recognize that the faster the pace of development, the more social disruption that you will have, and the more you will have to replace some of the values, some of the institutions in order to have, as I said, a healthy resident population. So the Ministry of Community Services, Youth, Sports and Gender Affairs has a multidisciplinary, multi-agency approach to problem solving. And you know, I'd just like to, at this particular point, welcome John Henry Ebanks, number two on the ballot, and Mr. Lloyd Sampson, who is number 8 on the ballot, and Beulah McField, who is number 3 on the ballot, and I, of course, I being number 4. So what we're actually saying is that they are bringing something to the table that we believe that is important in terms of the social development of the Cayman Islands. Because, you know, one of the big criticisms that we had of past governments is that they paid very little attention to social development. And that's where I came in basically in 1996 as a critic of the then administration, saying that the administration up until then had not given the general population a view of some of the social damage that had occurred as a result of rapid economic development, population changes, and that they were not offering us any kind of meaningful solutions to many of these issues. So I think we've come a long ways in terms of being able to say, look here, these are the types of policies, these are the types of strategies that have to, or institutions that have to be put in place in order to deal with this. Now, most of us only look at the issue of crime from the perspective of police action. We see crime, which we know is a manifestation of ill will and bad behavior and a breach of the norms of society. It offends the consciousness of everybody, and so people, at the point when you begin to have sustained criminal activity in your society, people begin to look at the need for some type of social management. But what we say is, although you need to manage criminal activities, you have to stop the development of criminality in your society, and that there are causes of criminal behavior, and that those causes can be discovered, and something can be done in order to eradicate the causes of the development of juvenile delinquency and crime in our society. So that takes us back again, Beulah, to your pet topic, where you're talking about the family.
Yes. Yeah. You know, as I was listening to you, people, a lot of times we don't stop to consider the different things that cause the breakdown in the society, is the fabric of the society. One of it is the rapid development. And what happens, excuse me, a lot of time in rapid development is that people are left behind and actually, excuse me, are segregated. And segregation occurs because of a number of different reasons. One might be because of some type of prejudice or bigotry. But the segregation that has occurred within the Cayman society has not necessarily been because of prejudice or bigotry, but because of economic and social differences. And because of that, you have a number of persons within our society that have been segregated. They've been segregated to certain small pockets of communities. They've not been able to break through the ceiling in housing and education and even job, you know, in the job market. And so when I came on the scene looking at it from a point of view of a woman, of a mother, and also as a part of these small natural and local communities, I realized that we needed to do something about it in order to empower the people within the community so that they would be able to break through this ceiling of segregation that does exist within our society. And Rehoboth Ministries came about. One of the things that we looked at was to be able to empower moms, working mothers, to be able to go ahead and make the commitment to spend the long hours at work by providing after-school care for their children and providing a safe and nurturing environment for the children. And I did that by looking at what type of a culture we were accustomed to. And Rehoboth is more of an extended family than an institutionalized after-school program, where it is run as a family.
Yeah, well, you know, back to the whole point of the changes in terms of the management of children or the socialization of children, and I hope that I'm not using too many words that people don't really use, but the home is the primary socialization agency. So it's within the home where the child begins to form his or her character, values and attitudes, where the child begins to experiment with his or her behavioral patterns. And it's there from the very beginning that one has to begin to impact. So if it's missed because the mom has to go out to work full time, she doesn't have people that she can depend upon to assist with the rearing of the child, then there are things that could go wrong. That could go right in the home.
I like to say that there are things that the child ends up lacking because of that. If you look at the development of children as being at least 2/3 what their environment is, then you think, well, if something is missing from the environment, then obviously something is going to be missing from that child. So what we look at as far as after-school program is to provide what is lacking because a parent is at work. So we try to bring those elements back. As far as I said, I think that after-school programs need to be nurturing programs.
And this goes back again, guys, and you can jump in when you want to. But the findings of the Committee of Inquiry into Causes of Social Breakdown and Violence Among Youth in the Cayman Islands, that was presented to the Parliament of the Cayman Islands in December 2001, and it says when it's dealing with risk factors within the family. The committee considered the following as risk factors associated with juvenile delinquency: poor parent-child relationships, family structure, and negative influences within the home. And it says poor parent-child relationships. Vital information from the Department of Social Services, the schools, rehabilitative institution, educational psychologists, and substance abuse counselors point to the fact that deviancy is the result of negative socialization. Parents are the primary agents of socialization. They are expected to lay the foundation upon which spiritual, societal, and family value systems are built. When these values are corrupted or communicated poorly or even omitted, the results are maladjusted children who are ill-equipped to deal with life experiences. Results of the survey indicate that among the young people interviewed, offenders and non-offenders, there was some level of parental involvement. A vast majority of young persons interviewed indicated that their parents knew who they associated with, and approximately 2/3 indicated that their parents had time to talk with them about topics that were of interest to them. In the 1997 study of the family in the Cayman Islands by Dr. Wint, it was reported that love is not evident in the family. Parents seem unwilling to touch and express their feelings in any way other than buying goods and services. This finding was borne out through further questioning by the committee, which revealed that the relationships between offenders and their parents were lacking in intimacy or substance, as 71% of the offenders reported that their parents were often unaware of their affairs. Lack of support or close relationship between the parent and the child can lead to low self-esteem and low self-worth, which research indicates are both risk factors for juvenile delinquency. Children who have poor self-image and do not feel that they have a strong connection with their families tend to seek this security and self-affirmation outside of the family. Oftentimes, these young people make poor choices and tend to align themselves with groups who engage in deviant behavior. The majority of the offenders interviewed were identified as being affiliated with groups who engage in deviant behavior. So you're back to the whole situation of where, in terms of our strategy of fighting deviancy, juvenile delinquency, maladjusted behavior, a crime, that it is important that we have a holistic approach to that although we need police action, we need to pay for more resources for police, we need to also put resources in place to make sure that the primary socialization agencies are reinforced and that they were supported.
It's interesting to note, Dr. Frank, that when you speak about the interaction between parent and child, if we look back when we were growing up, while our parents and the majority of parents on the island did not necessarily hug, touch, and feel the children, there was still that love and affection that existed because there was a more caring society. There was a more balanced structure. Development was not as acute as it is today. And I believe there's a correlation between the development and the pace of development and the rapid change of people's values and people's way of looking at life. If you look at 1960 versus 1990, the proliferation of different ideas and ideologies and TV structures and crime levels have risen dramatically. So I say all of that to say that there is a distinct correlation between the social fabric and the social development of a country. And it is rather unfortunate that for many years, and I think it's safe to say, and has been documented, that when you came back home in the 1970s, you sort of created a new view, a new outlook, which was not, of course, in many cases recognized, and in fact ridiculed in many aspects. But what you have said then still persists today. What the department and the ministries that you have actually worked with, okay, they are now well poised, not only to understand, but also to manage the changes very effectively. I was very privileged to have attended a retreat that you guys had at Moritz, and the vibrancy that was there at that retreat, the women and the men who were articulating their positions and their roles within the framework that has been created was just incredible. And I think I mentioned then, and I've mentioned now, and I'll keep on mentioning it again, the people who make this social fabric or are creating the changes and managing these changes, they need to basically not necessarily be acknowledged, but the people of this community need to know who they are, need to know that they are a part, an innate part, a vibrant part of the culture of this country that is actually helping people to change their lives, to change their lifestyles, to address inadequacies caused by the social breakdown. And I think it's important that people understand that.
But I mean, one of the things is that we see that the violence really is a result of the social breakdown.
The violence is a result of the social breakdown. And I mean, I listen to so many people, politicians especially, and they're always talking about how they want to develop. Yeah, I know. We're the exception. How they want to develop the nation, and they talk about the development of the infrastructure of the nation, of the country, but they forget that all the development that you do, the physical development that you do to a country, to a nation, is not going to be really worth anything if it's not balanced with development of the society as well. In order to have a truly progressive and a truly balanced and healthy nation, you have to look at addressing not only the economical and the physical development, but you have to address the social development of the people of the country.
I think we must concede, and I think we've made this point from very early in the campaign, that exactly as you've so properly put it, Beulah, that there has been this neglect, and the emphasis has been on other development and not necessarily on the development of people. And there are persons who would voice the opinion that we have perhaps, in a sense, lost a generation because of that lack of attention. And what I think people should remember as well from a political point of view was that it wasn't, I mean, quite apart from your efforts outside of government, as John said when you first returned, that it wasn't until the Honorable McKeever Bush became a minister for sports and what have you under a previous administration, obviously back in the 90s.
In 92,
Yes. 92. That we saw some emphasis starting to be placed on this sort of development. We saw the construction and opening of the Truman Bodden Sports Complex, for example, and other sporting facilities, and the Ed Bush and other fields in the other districts. And that is to be commended, and I think it fits right in with our way of thinking at the moment, which is, as you say, there has to be this multifaceted, holistic approach. You can't just simply throw money at it or tackle it from one angle, but we have to look at the development of people as a whole, whether it be sport, just providing wholesome sporting activities and facilities, whether it be encouraging and enhancing the after-school programs like Rehoboth and what have you, that allow the children to remain in a more positive environment for longer periods of time. And sometimes it isn't that parents are neglectful, but just trying to keep your head above water financially is an awesome talent. You know.
We had our meeting last night in Prospect, and I truly respect, you know, the middle class families. They take the brunt of everything. I mean, if economy is bad, they feel it first. If there's breakdown in the social fabric, they feel it the hardest. And when you look at the people that are living in the areas like Prospect and Spots Newlands and the different areas that have developed outside the central Georgetown area, you understand the dynamics of why social reinforcement that is so important, and social programs are so important, because these people have purchased these homes, they have mortgages, they have children that are now going off to college or whatever. I mean, they're up and mobile, moving. And of course, they're on the job, they're professionals, and they have to put in that amount of time. What happens to their children? They're still trying to raise a family. They leave Prospect and they drive to Georgetown and they go to work, and they still have to put in their 8 hours, sometimes 9 or 10 hours. What happens to their children? Now, they've moved out of these central areas in order to give their children a better lifestyle, to be able to provide a more independent home. And in so doing, it causes now a breakdown, because we're traditionally extended family oriented. So where did it come? When the Honorable McKeever Bush did take up the mantle of the Department of Social Development, I think it was called at that time, he did put in place, because he realized this, but it takes a person who lives it to know it. It is very difficult for someone that has never had to worry about where the pennies come from, who have always had helpers in their homes that were able to be afforded to a certain level, you know, where you have an educated helper who's able to really interact with your children as opposed to the helpers that most people can afford. And so it makes a lot of difference. It makes a lot of difference.
In terms of the, you know, this social development aspect, the development of people, making sure that we don't lose another generation or another few generation, or that we lose, if we have to lose, very, very few people. I mean, if you look at the development of the sporting institutions in the Cayman Islands since 1992, because prior to 1992 they had sports in the Cayman Islands, but it was not recognized and supported by the Cayman Islands government as something that was healthy and something that really added to the stability and the health of the society. You know, sports plays a tremendous role. Mr. Bush recognized that. And I think as sports minister, what I have tried to do is to build on that infrastructure that he had put in place, and we have managed, and I think this is where we really need to get support from as many of the sporting organizations as possible, as many of the individuals involved in sports as possible, because we need to keep sports as one of the main focus areas for young people in our society. We need therefore to fund sports, and I know that a lot of people are talking about let's fund this, let's do this, let's do that, but there are a lot of things already. Our ministry is spending about $45 million in this budget, $45 million for 2004, 2005, and not enough is still going to sports. We still see where we need to continue to develop sports, because where we might be able to find an adolescent or juvenile that have behavioral difficulties, we can integrate him into a pro-social sporting program, and that can begin to change the direction and the life and therefore the outcome. Look how much money it saves the society when you don't have to lock that man up, when you don't have to have a police to look after that person, to make sure that that person is not going to be negative towards himself or society.
Yeah, I really clearly see light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the way that the process has evolved into directing a lot of our energies towards complementing sports and allowing our kids to have that ability to interact, because sports is not just the sake of physical exercise, it's also an interaction. It also creates discipline. It also shows you to be a team player. And these things that have occurred over the years, these problems that we've had, some of them are conflicts that we've experienced in a society. People are not able to relate to one another, therefore there's a conflict between us. Sporting activities, if handled properly, do tend to assist children into understanding that there has to be a social cohesiveness, not only at home, but also on the football field and eventually in life. But I'd just like to mention a couple of the accomplishments that have happened within Mr. Mark Field's ministry in regards to sports. And I think it's important that the public be made aware of this fully. During the period of 2001 to 2003, sorry, to 2005, the ministry has provided 14 partial scholarships for sports and community, provided sports and community grants to associations and community groups. They have actually continued the provision of the Learn to Swim program, assisted with the development of Community Basketball League, development of the Government Football League, upgraded the fields, and a lot of money has been spent on upgrading fields, the Truman Bodden Sports Complex, Ed Bush playing field, Bodden Town playing field, basketball courts in East End, Windsor Park, Georgetown, Boson Bay, and on and on and on and on.
Yes.
One of the key elements, though, I believe, is having people who have excelled in sports to a certain degree becoming role models, and this has been done through what is called a pro-social agent. And our agents at this moment are people like Karen Street Thompson, Sidonia Mothersill, Charles Whitaker, and Nigel Mitten. These are role models for the kids here today. They are able to look at them and perhaps emulate them to a certain degree, and that is what this community needs, and this is what is being provided. We cannot develop a society of people without having the proper mechanisms in place to satisfy not only their home environment, but also the way that they actually conduct themselves when they come out. Because if your environment at home is bad, and your environment when you come out is bad, then you're going to create social chaos.
Yes.
And I think the ministry and the people in the ministry have worked very effectively thus far to fulfill that need in the community.
One of the things that is most heartening to me, and I take a personal satisfaction in seeing, is that we have started to employ local people for some time now as coaches.
Yes.
I think of Andy Miles, we used to call him Kisco, some people still do, Gilly Seymour,
Yes.
Nita Day, yeah.
All Molly-Ann Moore,
Sherry Whittaker.
Devon.
Yeah, and all of
Davis,
these, all of these persons that we talked to have just spoken and mentioned the name were exceptional athletes in their time who. I am convinced that even if they had what is available to youngsters today, especially the slightly older ones, Mita and I are about the same age, but Gilly and Andy are a few years older, but they were all very talented people. And to see the dedication and the love that they still have for it, and the love they have for the kids, and how seriously they take their roles, that was, I mean, it's a small part of the overall picture, but that in itself to me is very heartening and very gratifying to see them still involved and trying to impart to the youngsters, you know, the more positive aspects of sports. I mean, they work very hard. I know that can't be easy sometimes to whole day in the hot sun out there with those kids, but they do it and seemingly don't even notice that. And it's that sort of thing to not just to interact with kids and the upcoming generation, but to involve persons such as they. It's much more effective.
And especially, you know, today when a lot of people have great opportunities to work in banks and to have those high-paying jobs that people actually choose to stay and be role models and to be the people who actually influence and guide young people in positive development. People like James Miles, who's you know, overcommitted to the job of dealing with young people. So I think that from the point of view of youth and sports, we feel that sports is a very important tool in terms of raising the level of youth empowerment.
Definitely.
Because we hear people talking about the young people being left out and talking the negative things, but those are the same people that you don't see at the sports meetings. They have very little understanding of positive young people and the way in which positive young people are contributing to the human development in our society, and the role that the government plays in encouraging associations and supporting associations to continue the role of athletic development, you know, as an instrument of human development. So, you know, it's not as if the government has neglected the people. Since 92, the Cayman Islands have recognized the positive contribution which sporting institutions make to the social harmony of the society, to the social development of the society, and we have invested, at least as a UDP government, tremendous resources, and we would like to be able to invest more in terms of that development. Like I was saying last night in the meeting, we would like to know, because volleyball is a very, very, very competitive and disciplined sport, and we would like to be able to support that. We'd like to be able to support basketball. We need accommodations for the basketball, indoor accommodation. Those are areas that we need to be looking at and trying to work out exactly how we are going to find funds for that and how we're going to reward people.
And given the successes, for example, of sports such as swimming, Again, I'm sure that, and I'm sure the government has been trying to assist that program in the best way possible. But again, I'm sure we'll be looking at continuing that support. Obviously, they need better facilities in that regard, and they have earned it in a sense.
They
and
truly
I think
have.
it's almost a duty to ensure that the program is enhanced and encouraged, because they do deal with vast numbers of children. They don't tend to segregate themselves or try to cater to any sort of niche market.
Yeah.
But
Well, I know John Henry was going to say something, but I want just to emphasize that a government that cares about sports is a government that cares about people.
Yes.
And I mean, I've heard a lot of the opposition, what they have to say and all of that, but they are not people that we recognize that have this in-depth type of knowledge and involvement in human development. And it's a very, very important part of any society, the human development part, and it should form a very important part of the political strategies of any party.
Well, maybe it's not necessarily their fault. They don't have the benefit of having a professional on board in a particular area.
That's true. I never thought about it.
I'm making light of it, obviously. But I know that you have taken an approach, and maybe this is deviating just slightly from the area of sports, but still on the topic of human development. You've extended that concept into your housing initiatives, for example. I've heard you mention it more than once, that you tie in your Department of Children and Family Services, because if I understand you properly, what your concept is not only just to build the physical homes and create the physical communities, but it is your hope to have social workers, counselors, what have you, that are designated to these communities so that they can interact with the families and identify any problems and help to shore up any sort of problems that may raise their head within the community. So as you say, it's community building and not just a housing scheme or a housing development. And that's the way that you really approach it.
It's a social contract that the ministry has undertaken in giving the people affordable housing. The people are being given an opportunity to realign their lives, to realign the way that they actually see life, the way that they are community, because this is a community that belongs to them.
Yes.
Therefore, by bringing in the social workers, by bringing in teachers to teach them how to conduct themselves, to teach them how to run a little business, to teach them how to interact one with the other, we're not just giving and throwing people into houses, we're actually helping them to develop have a mobility path, I should say, from that level of affordable housing until they're actually able to afford. And hopefully the programs that we will create after this election will actually help that as well, where we provide balanced interest rates where they can actually afford, where the levels of salary will be commensurate with the levels of the strata of housing at a higher level in the community. So it is a program that's incredible, and I think it's an experiment in itself within the Cayman Islands and perhaps in the Caribbean, because everybody builds houses and throws people into them. I lived in Puerto Rico for several years, and there were several complexes that were built 8 or 9 years before I arrived, and there were slums. The concept here is not to build slums, as detractors have said. The concept here is to actually have people grow from a community of affordable level to whatever levels they want to achieve at the end of the day. They are being given the assistance that has not been given in prior years by prior governments to have a vision for the future. And that's what this whole concept is all about.
What you're seeing is proactive social work. One of the things that I've always had against welfare is that welfare tends to deal with situations and conditions that will never improve. So all they do is they put people on life support. There's never any hope that they're going to recover, but we're going to keep them alive. And that's all welfare has ever done. What is going on now under Dr. Frank, and I am so proud to be a part of it. I mean, history is being written here in social development, is that Dr. Frank, being the man that he is and understanding society the way he has set about to be proactive in welfare. So that what we're doing is, and what he's done is he's taking people that would never be able to own a home. And you have to understand the special dynamics of a parent, a single mother especially, with say 4 to 5 children living on an income below $1,500 a month. Really, she cannot succeed.
Yeah, she's a
she's
miracle
dying.
worker.
She's dying. Yeah. Okay, and her family is slowly dying socially and economically. And what Dr. Frank is doing, he's taking her and he's saying, okay, I'm not going to hook you up to life support. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on a rehabilitation program to infuse you with life. We're going to give you a home, you're going to purchase it, and then we're going to teach you how to keep it, how to manage your finances as small as they are. And we know that we have to shore you up. So there's going to be social workers there. There's going to be community centers there with after-school programs. There's going to be people there to teach you how to manage your personal finance. And what they're going to do is they're going to take this person that was dying financially and socially, and they're going to rehabilitate them, make them well, and send them on. We're never going to create slums because that was never the intention. The intention is not to create a graveyard where we bury dead people.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other point too is that a lot of people fail to recognize that those people have purchased their homes.
They're purchased.
They've voluntarily decided that that's the choice that they want to make. One reason why they made the choice is because there were no other choices for them. So the lack of choice for that particular income group is what caused us to make the moves that we did, and what causes us to continue to defend the product. But we continue to emphasize that it's not just a roof we're giving them a community. The social development officers are all attached to the different schemes. They work with the people, they know the people. I mean, we got Hurricane Ivan, and that kind of took us off track from the point of view of building and putting our social programs in place, because there were other priorities that the country had in terms of its recovery process. But mainly it is about giving a person a possibility to say, look, why should I fail? Show the person how to improve their income.
That's right.
Show the person maybe like the small business schemes that you're talking about. Maybe that same person can qualify at the CIDB for some amount of financial assistance in order to be able to create a second income, not by being employed, but by employing themselves through using some particular kinds of skills. So in that particular community, you have your problems or your challenges, and there are lots of challenges for very low income individuals, especially the single individuals. And we need to work with those. And if I'm making $1,500 a month, and my wife is making $1,500 a month, that's $3,000 a month. But a lot of these people are single parents.
One income.
One income. What are they supposed to purchase? Where are they going? There's no mobility for them. This represents geographical and social and economic mobility, because there's a product that exists that these people can have access to.
Now, if I can just interject for a second, while we talk about the lower income level, the government has also made a stance before the affordable housing, where a mortgage guarantee scheme was created for the middle income levels of the society, which has proven to have given quite a number of our young Caymanian professionals that are starting out a means of acquiring a house at decent rates. And that, again, was missing from the whole quotient of the social development of this country. Because as we progress in this community, in this wide community called the Cayman Islands, we must understand that their needs and wants are different levels. And the government, I believe, has been very successful in addressing those various needs and grants. Obviously, there's still a lot more to be done. A lot more fine-tuning of the programs is needed. But I think it's a very good start. And I think it needs a chance for it to be continued under the auspices of the present administration of the United Democratic Party.
I think that's a prime example of what the UDP mean when they say a government for all the people,
All the people.
and that you try to look at it, as you say, and address it on the various different levels. There are needs at every level and concerns at every level, and the attempt has been, in a very real way, as you say, to address all of the concerns in the best way that you possibly can.
One of the things also that you need to look at is that children that come from a lot of these families, though it's not limited to those families with very low income, it is a problem that has stretched across the economic fabric of the community, and it's reached many middle-class families as well. That's the problems with the young people. And I do recall that prior to this particular UDP government being in power, there was a big problem with young people falling through the cracks, being put out of schools and being put into the Marine Institute and being put in the West Bay lockup, which was, really inhumane treatment a lot of time for the young people. And how Dr. Frank came in and looked at that whole problem and began to reassess it and to bring changes that I must say he took a lot of criticism for, with the doing away with the abolishment of the Marine Institute and the bringing back of the Bonaventure and the creation of the Keys Foundation.
But if people would just take some time out to follow or to become involved or to examine a lot of what government does, especially in social development, they would be amazed in terms of the contribution which their government makes to the society on a daily basis. I mean, we just started with the Children and Family Services, the National Parenting Initiative. Right. That is a very, very important initiative that we have launched because we understand the importance of parenting. We understand that as we were reading from the causes of social breakdown, the importance of making sure that you communicate those values, that those values are not corrupted, and that they are communicated properly to children. So that's just again another area of why we feel that we have correctly identified risk factors that actually cause our society or cause people in our society to have adjusted behaviors, and that we can begin to address these, and that the ministry, through its multidisciplinary, multi-agency type of approach, have gotten its department going in the right way, and we need to continue that. That's one reason why I'm so happy that the Force of Four is willing to sit and deal with our accomplishments, rather than us talking about what Henry's going to do, about what Lloyd's going to do. But we have a possibility to sit and understand and talk about UDP accomplishments and how those accomplishments go deep into the very roots of our society in terms of creating and protecting a healthy resident population. And if we were, for instance, to back off of our social development strategies at this particular point, because you had a change again in minister, or you had a change in ideologies with regards to the importance of social development, I think it could be a very, very, very dangerous thing. I think that to see the benefits of some of the social strategies is going to take time. But I have been able to recognize the decrease in juvenile delinquency, the decrease in the numbers of kids that are coming in contact with the court system and with the police system. We have seen it.
A great decrease.
Now, I went to Bonaventure today to see Michael Miles and Bonnie Anglin, and they took me on a tour of the Bonaventure, and Mr. Tony Scott, and they took me on a tour of Bonaventure. And the situation there where they have 14 boys, and their entire mission, their entire vision, and their structure, and how kids are benefiting, how parents are being forced by the courts, by the way in which the law is now being interpreted, to get involved with their children. and not just that that their children are a dumping ground, that they spend all the time there, that they go there and they get lost, but that they go there, they find a safe home, they find the possibility to have a structured life, they have people there that care, and they have a possibility to go on in their lives. And it is happening. The program that is now at Bonaventure House, run by the Keys Foundation and through Mr. Michael Miles, is a success.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes,
it's
it
also
is.
encouraging, and something again that, not unlike the coaches that I mentioned earlier, but the Caymanization
Yes.
of, and I know you were very proud of it and have mentioned it repeatedly, but I think the importance of it perhaps is somewhat lost, or oftentimes lost, on the public at large. But to have a man such as Michael and his other Caymanian assistants who are there, who can understand and identify with these youngsters, I think the chances of success, or him getting through to them, for want of a better term, is always that much greater, and it's indeed commendable.
Yeah.
But here again, going back to the upward mobility of people, maybe you'd like to talk about the girls which were recently accepted in the community college. This again is another example of social mobility through the programs that have been created.
Because I mean, I think that social mobility should be the emphasis of all the programs, rather than, as you say, that you put people on a support system that means that they're going to die rather than be rehabilitated. And the girls that have been able to achieve positions in the community college or in the Cayman Islands college here, I mean, 3 girls have been able to strive to that level. But I think that what I understand, and I mean, I am not an expert, but when we have people who are willing to stay in the field, who are willing to go into the trenches to help young people like Mr. Tony Scott and Michael Miles, and there are others in terms of the coaches and other people that are out there doing great jobs, counseling kids and leading young people in the right positive direction. But we have to give them so much credit, because they could be making so much more money someplace else.
Yeah, you mentioned Jamo Miles earlier, and John and I had a nice conversation with him last night, and I think he's organizing or trying to
organize a youth forum.
A youth forum.
Yeah, because he's the the person who is mainly responsible in the Department of Youth for youth issues. You know, there's youth parliaments, there's a youth passports that is going to be launched, there's a youth policy that has been implemented, constantly implemented, and we are going forward with the many things that we're doing to create a positive environment for young people, giving them the opportunity to develop their full human potential. So when we have the opposition out there going on as if nothing is being done to positively impact young people, that's nonsense.
And when you have people out there that are selling short the benefits of social programs, because I know that you can go ahead and you can continue to develop your country in the financial industry, in the tourist industry, and you can have this beautiful package that you want to sell because you want money to come to the island, and we want money to come to the island because, you know, it's needed. But when you do all of that, neglecting the social aspect of the country, you're just asking for trouble, and it won't last. It can't last without the balance.
And I think it is clear that whilst to a certain extent we might have gotten away with that sort of approach in the past, now more than ever, we cannot afford to ignore the situation, because the cost to the country is going to be astronomical in terms of.
I think it's also important to mention that part of the program, part of the multidisciplinary programs, is also extended to the prison services, where the prison services are now benefiting from various initiatives, such as what's it called again, the Eagle House. We went on tour there a couple of weeks ago, and it was so gratifying to see young kids standing around waiting for the teacher while we were talking to each other. Well, do you have this one? Have you finished this one as yet? You know, there's an enthusiasm. There's that.
And engaging in very useful conversation as well. One young man on the way out.
It's sad to hear critics that criticize the prison system and criticize the lack of, and criticize the drug problem in the prisons, not fully understanding that there are means and ways to do things, and one of the main ways to deal with a situation is to assist rather than decry the situation.
That's right.
If we can provide assistance rather than tearing it down, we are providing an assistance not just for now but for the future. Some people in this community, in particular the opposition, seem to have had a mindset that I cannot contribute anything because I'm not government. I cannot contribute anything because I don't have the power. So my argument has always been, you are the Queen's opposition. Why don't you earn your money by providing assistance to your community, by giving and offering your intellect, by giving and offering your services, as opposed to criticizing every initiative that comes forward.
You brought up the prison, and you know, 1999 was the time in which we had the riots.
Yes.
And people have forgotten the destruction, the physical destruction there, the infrastructural disorganization, and the way where the prison is today, and I cannot have a topic like prison and feel that somehow that everything is perfect because it's prison.
It's prison.
And they're going to be, people are there because of their behavior, and therefore they're not going to stop behaving that way simply because they're in prison.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult subject, but we started off, first of all, when I took over the prison in 2001, November 2001, to have weekly briefings with the director, who was Mr. John Forrester from England at that particular time. And that continued over a long period of time until we had the change in the guard when Mr. Dwight Scott took over as the new director. And I must say that I was involved in every aspect in terms of wanting to know, wanting to lead, wanting to suggest. There were things that I knew that were going on in the prison that sometimes that they didn't necessarily know, because I might have gotten that through the grapevine, like how we get these things sometimes.
Or the phone call.
But I know that they did not come for an incredible additional amount of money. They made do with what they had. They used prison labor. So when people are talking about them being lazy in the prison and not doing anything, the prisoners are working. We also bought Furtherlands Farm, a big piece of land that we brought back to the possession of the Cayman Islands people, that is being used as a farm that the prisoners are working themselves. And there are still things that we can do it, but that's the kind of foresight that we've had. Choosing, and I know we get criticism for this too, but Dwight Scott is one of the most fantastic prison leaders that you'll find. We have a training school here. We are training prison officers from other overseas jurisdictions.
He's ably assisted by Mr. Danny Greaves as well.
Mr. Danny Greaves. Yeah. So we are training people. We're not sending people away to train. We are bringing directors here and training them. So the development of the prison services since the riots has been tremendous.
Incredible
and they need a lot of encouragement. But no, we don't encourage them. You know what? We do the first thing that goes wrong there.
Tear them down.
We tear them down.
We tear them down. And Miss Claire Range has been
fantastic.
Yeah, people don't realize as well. I suppose they do, though. It's a bit presumptuous of me to say that they don't realize, but, and we've spoken, John mentioned it earlier, Eagle House is a revelation. And it was something that as young counsel, when I first came back, and initially even prosecuting, it was always something that I was very, very adamant about, that there had to be some separate facility that juvenile offenders could be housed at, and because their needs are different, and the whole approach to their rehabilitation has to be different. Never mind the fact that to leave them amongst adult and perhaps more hardened criminals only tends to educate them in criminality. So that in itself, again, I think is one of the major accomplishments of your ministry, in that we have a separate facility for them now. Ms. Range, who is a very loving and caring woman, and who they all seem to respect, is doing a wonderful job along with her staff there. But that I think was one of the major accomplishments, and one that you can be quite proud of.
And I think in terms of us summing up, I think it's important that people don't forget what the government have done. The United Democratic Party have worked very, very, very hard to create the kind of vision and to implement the kind of programs and strategies that will assist in rebuilding a lot of the social fabric and social cohesiveness and harmony that we have lost as a result of rapid development. So we're not just talking about moving the engine, we're talking about protecting the bases at the same time. So although we're calling for more economic activities and we're calling for greater prosperity and greater distribution of that particular prosperity, we recognize that some people will get left behind and that we have to have ways of helping their rehabilitation, assisting with their rehabilitation, and being able to include them again. So I'm very proud as the person who, senior person representing the United Democratic Party here. But I think it is something that I need to tell our voters as well, that even if you guys were not elected, you would still form part of the United Democratic Party if it was in government caucus. You would still be able to lend your intelligence to that particular system, and I think that is one of the great advantages that we have in the party system. So that when somebody is saying, wow, that John Henry Ebanks, he seems like a really stable, well-thinking individual. He has thought a lot of things out. We wouldn't really want to lose him. So we have access to people. So we want to encourage people to understand that the way in which we are approaching party politics, or the way in which we are approaching politics, is to understand that we must work as a team.
As a team.
And we must continue to work as a team regardless of what happens, because we all have contributions that we can make to our society. And we're not going to be like the opposition and think that we have to be in power in order to make some contribution, as you were saying, Henry. But definitely, I think that we are doing well in the election race. I think that John Henry, if I hear out there, we're getting very, very good reports on you, very good reports on Lloyd, very good reports on Beulah. People have recognized your dedication to certain values. They've recognized your intelligence, and they've recognized the fact that Georgetown could benefit by having a cohesive team of people that have the capability of working together for the first time, rather than all of these petty differences which have divided Georgetown politicians for so long. We need to get the kind of cohesiveness that West Bay seemed to have had and maintained over a long period of time.
We need it on a national level, and as you say, we only need to look at our friends in West Bay and see what they have been able to achieve by unifying. And you know, they were miles ahead of most districts in terms of the cleanup after post-Ivan. They can boast of the Land and Sea Co-op, which is not necessarily a West Bay body, but it was an initiative led by the Honorable Wekiva Bush. It shows, again, another example of unity coming to the pooling of resources, the way he approached, for example, the Turtle Farm project, the inclusion there of small contractors, the way they approached the dock with Mr. Miles and the collaborative effort between all the heavy equipment operators. Again, unity is key, and you can achieve so much more and make so many more bold strides when there's that cohesiveness, that unity. And that is something that we really want to bring to Georgetown come May.
I believe after all is said and done, if there's only one thing that we have achieved during this election, is to actually broaden the perspective of our people's minds in terms of policies, in terms of politics, in terms of commitment of people that want to see a better Cayman Islands. The Force of Four for Georgetown is not just a group of individuals who are vying for political prowess. We are a people, we're a group of individuals who have listened and looked at our surroundings and said, we want to be active, we want to be proactive in our community. And by being proactive, we also have joined a group of people called the United Democratic Party, which has shown the people of the Cayman Islands that there's strength in unity, and that there's a commitment to promoting, enhancing, and protecting the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, again, I mean, I just love sitting here with you three men and discussing the issues. One of the things that we need to look at is that we are a party, and we're not ashamed of that. We're quite proud of the fact that all of us can come together, bringing different things to the table. We're a complete package because we have those people that work diligently on the economy and on the infrastructure and the social. So we are a totally balanced team. But not just Georgetown, we represent the entire island. We're not here just to be in Georgetown, but the whole island, to say that we understand and we take into consideration all the aspects of a nation. And that's what we're here to give you.
And I hope that on May the 11th, that you will vote for number 2 on the ballot, number 3 on the ballot, number 4 on the ballot, and number 8 on the ballot. So that would be John Henry Ebanks, number 2, Beulah McField, number 3, Frank McField, number 4, Lloyd Sampson, number 8. We don't want to lose any of our candidates. They're too valuable. We are collective in the way we behave, the way we think. We need to work together in order to improve. If we're going to do all these things that we really want to do, then we need the force of 4. Good night from Public Eye.
Public Eye has been brought to you by the New Vision Movement.